Hello, and welcome to Precon Decon, the video series where I deconstruct the pre-constructed decks of Magic the Gathering's history. In this video, we're going to continue our look at the Guildpact decks, and we're going to move on and look at Gruul Wilding, which is the green and red deck, as it represents, obviously, the Gruul clans. So let's look at the deck list. So, 26 creatures, 9 enchantments, 1 instant, 24 land, and mana curve off to the side there. So, bit weird seeing, it's a red-green deck and we're not seeing many instants or sorceries. We'll get into it. I have some thoughts on it, which obviously I'm going to share. Let's start looking at the creatures. So, Gruul deck. So it's red-green, so you would expect aggro. The Gruul keyword in the original outing is bloodthirst. We'll get into looking at those cards bloodthirst. Let's talk about one of the rares of the deck. Borborygmus, however you want to pronounce it. So 3 double red, double green, big old 6/7 trampler. When he deals combat damage to a player, +1/+1 counter on every creature you control. That is, obviously big, fun, swingy, fat creature. There's a lot to like about that. it's just very enjoyable to have that as it's just very simple, very straightforward. And I think if you're a new player getting this out of the deck, you'd see big old creature, big power and toughness, big effect like that, and just I think Borborygmus is perfectly fine. And they actually prefer him to this version to the Return to Ravnica version, where I can't remember exactly what he does. He has some sort of something to do with lands, like you discard lands to do damage or something like that. I actually like this one a bit more, I think, just because it's a lot more straightforward and very big swingy effect. So let's talk about some of the cards that have bloodthirst. So. Bloodthirst is an ability where if the opponent has been dealt damage already this turn, the creature comes in with a number of counters on it equal to its bloodthirst value. Now, in practice, I think this is a good mechanic because, basically when I used to kind of play Magic more casually, play against kind of younger players, they would sort of assume that combat is like the end of the turn. You cast spells and then you do combat and then you end your turn. This, I think, is actually a really good teaching tool because it does heavily, point you towards trying to cast things in your second main phase. You have combat, you maybe do some damage to the opponent. Second main phase, you cast your creatures. And if you've dealt damage to your opponent, then you get your bloodthirst triggers. So in that regard, I think it's a good teaching tool as a mechanic. However, the actual bloodthirst cards themselves, I don't think are too good. Mostly because I think they are costed, assuming you always get bloodthirst. And if if the bloodthirst doesn't go off, then they're kind of overcosted, in my opinion. It's interesting because we will see bloodthirst again in M12. I think it makes a return there, and I think it's done a lot better there. But yeah, here on its first outing, it's a bit wonky. So enough actually prattling about bloodthirst and that. Let's actually talk about the cards. So a single battering worm. So this is what I mean about being overcosted. So 7 mana for a 4/3, but has bloodthirst, so it could be a 5/4. That's still very expensive for 7 mana. But creature's power less than its own power can't block it. So that's an okay effect, That's an okay effect. That might sort of justify the higher mana cost. But it's still very expensive. And from what I remember, there's no real reliable ramp in this deck either. That's problematic. Anyway. I know it's not fair to compare against rarities, but compare this to Borborygmus, who is just 6/7 with trample and has it's not fair to compare because he's multicolored as well. But anyway, just saying, very very different 7 mana value things there. 2 Bloodscale Prowlers, so it's just 3 mana for a 3/1, but it can be a 4/2 if you have Bloodthirst. So I mean, it just kind of feels 3 mana for a 3/1 with like no other abilities. It's just it's just very underwhelming, honestly. And then a single Burning Tree Bloodscale. So 2 colors, 1 red, 1 green for a 2/2 with Bloodthirst 1, so it can be a 3/3. Again, 3/3 for 4. Not wonderful, especially in 2 colors. And then its abilities are 2 colours and 1 red. A creature can't block it this turn, or 2 colours and a green. A creature has to block it this turn if able. So I kind of like those 2 abilities being on it. You know, again, these being kind of they only target a single creature is actually, you know, makes it pretty expensive. You know, if you want to do like a lure effect, you're gonna have to put quite a lot of mana into it. Yeah, it's okay. It's a little under average, I think, the Burning Tree Bloodscale. A single Scab Clan Mauler, 1 red, 1 green for a 1/1 with Bloodthirst 2 and Trample. So again, you would only want to try and cast this if you've managed to hit Bloodthirst, because then, you know, like a 3/3 Trample for 2 is you know, that's pretty decently costed. But yeah, you wouldn't pay 1 red and 1 green for a 1/1 with Trample. You just wouldn't. So yeah, it's kind of, you know, it's kind of a trap choice if you do it that way. And then we have 2 Skargan Skybreakers, which is weird. I would have thought, you know, we'd have had 2 Scab Clan Maulers because they're cheaper, but whatever. So Skargan Skybreaker, 4 mana, 2 red, 1 green, for a 3/3 with Bloodthirst 3. So income is a 6/6, so he's actually decently costed. Like, this is one of the better Bloodthirst creatures. And you can sacrifice him for 1 mana, and he does damage equal to its power to target creature or player. So that's actually pretty good, I think. So what's the ceiling on this guy? He comes in as a 6/6 for 6, which is okay. You could maybe get a swing with him, or you just immediately sacrifice him and it's 6 damage burn spell, which is, you know, I think it's all right. It's all right. Yeah, I think it's okay. I'd say even getting this down for 3, you know, make him a 3/3, and you've still got that ability to do 3 damage to something. It's okay. It's okay. The thing is, the Bloodthirst 3 makes it very, very swingy. You know, you're either getting him, like, you're getting a pretty good deal, or you're getting like really overcosted, like to spending 6 mana on a 3/3 with this ability. Anyway, going on and on about that. But yeah, I think Skargan Skybreaker, I think, is one of the better ones. So the deck also has ways of helping you trigger Bloodthirst. So we have a single Scorched Rusalka, 1 red mana for a 1/1. You can pay 1 red, sacrifice a creature, and it does 1 damage to target player, which is then enough to trigger Bloodthirst. Yeah, Scorched Rusalka is pretty good. It's a part of a cycle of these Rusalkas. I think, you know, the Scorched and the black one, the Plaid Rusalka, I think they're the best ones. Just because, you know, like the red one does damage to opponents, and the black one can kill small creatures. So yeah, that's why I think they're the better ones. So yeah, I like Scorched Rusalka. You've got a lot of creatures in the deck as well, so lots of sort of potential sacrifice material for it, and it can sacrifice itself as well, of course, if you want to. And 2 Spark Mage Apprentice, 2 mana for a 1/1. When it comes into play, it does 1 damage to any target. Again, that's a way of triggering Bloodthirst. I do think maybe it's a little. I do think this is a little overcosted, really, even at the time. This could have been like a 1/2 or a 2/1, and I think it basically would have been fine. To still just do that 1 damage on entry, but yeah, it is what it is. That was the time. Yeah, in this deck, that's his purpose, is just to turn on the Bloodthirst. Anyway. We have 2 Dryad Sophisticate. So this is actually pretty good, I think. So 2 mana for a 2/1 with non-basic land walk. So Ravening a block, everyone's playing non-basic lands. They're playing like their guild lands, their guild halls, you know, their shock lands. You know, not that there are any in these pre-constructed decks, but obviously the shock lands are around. So against a lot of decks, this would have been an unblockable 2/1 for only 2, which is pretty good, I think. And obviously, you know, a reliable way of getting through and doing damage, and then that triggers Bloodthirst. So yeah, I like Dryad Sophisticate. It's all right. I think it had some very limited competitive play, maybe. Yeah, just because non-basic land walk at higher levels of play is pretty much always guaranteed unblockable. Because, you know, higher level play, no one plays basics. But yeah, in these decks, I don't think it would have been as reliable, just because obviously there's fewer non-basic lands. But yeah, I think Dryad Sophisticate's I think it's a good card. I mean, it's still, you know, 2/1 for 2 with an ability technically. So yeah, for the time, definitely all right. A single Gruul Wilding. So this is not so great in my opinion. So 6 mana for a 4/4 with, you know, I mean, that's just immediately very bad stats. Pay 1 red and it gets Menace until end of turn. yeah, I mean, it's just very overcosted. Yeah, I don't know why this isn't only like say 5 mana at most, or why it needs double green. Yeah, it's just a very underwhelming card, honestly. Definitely not great. On the subject of not great, 2 Gruul Scrappers. So 4 mana for a 3/2. No other abilities. When it comes into play, if red was spent to play, it gets haste and stand to turn. So, yeah, this is not great either. So this is basically what 2 colors, 1 red, 1 green for a 3/2 haste, and that's it. That's all it does. That red ability is because normally like all these creatures or spells that where you pay the other guild color, usually give a pretty good effect. I really would have liked this to give maybe like +1/+1 and haste, or +2, or even just +1/+0 and haste. Just so if you spend the red, it comes down. It's a 4/2 with haste maybe, but as is, it's very underwhelming. I think, yeah, which is a shame. But yeah, Gruul really. I think it's the same with all these Guildpact. All the guilds that came out in Guildpact are just they're just kind of just off very slightly. In terms of the in terms of being kind of good. Like they feel just off the mark. A single indentured oath, 4 mana for a 4/3, prevent all damage that he would deal to red creatures, which is weird, I guess, but yeah, it's fine. The thing is, this is going to matter more in a block where usually there's a lot of multicolored cards around. So yeah, you can't even say he's efficiently costed because 4 mana for a 4/3 with no other abilities, and like his text box is all drawback. Yeah, not wonderful, not wonderful. Gruul Guildmage, like all the guild mages, 2 hybrid mana for a 2/2. 2 abilities, so 3 colors and 1 red. Sacrifice a land, does 2 damage to target player. Kind of a desperate way of triggering bloodthirst, but it is a way of also, if you've got the mana, you could just keep, which you won't because you have to keep sacrificing lands. But this is a way of getting the last few bits of damage in, I suppose. Yeah. Or 3 colors and 1 green to give a creature +2/+2 turn. That's his better ability, I think. Yeah, I think it's all right. Not the best guild mage. I think it's all right. I think it's better than the Orzhov guild mage. But yeah, that sacrificing a land is pretty rough. Single Street Breaker Worm. It's just 6/4 vanilla for 5 mana. It's basically it's cheaper than Craw Worm, but hard to cast because of the double color. I don't think it should be compared to Craw Worm as a as a compliment. Just no abilities. This could easily have had trample or something, and it's fine. It's just boring vanilla creature. Always boring to see like just a vanilla creature in these pre-constructed decks. Always feels like. I mean, I suppose we had Watchwolf, but Watchwolf was like good because it's like efficiently costed. Whereas this is, it is what it is. A single wild Cantor, so 1 hybrid red-green for a 1/1, and you can sacrifice to give yourself 1 mana of any color. This is okay, and I'm really annoyed there's only 1 of them in the deck. I feel like there should have been maybe like 3 of these to help power out big creatures, because obviously this is something that's helps get out those big creatures with bloodthirst. You could attack with it, it gets through, and then second main phase you sacrifice it to get the mana to help get out a big creature, I guess. Yeah, I really wish there'd been like 3 of these honestly in the deck. Just because it's like one of the better cards in the deck, honestly. Just a little 1 mana dork like this, but yeah, perfectly good. And then 2 Bramble Elementals. So, as we saw from the deck list, there is like a enchantment sub-theme in the deck, which I do not understand, and I will definitely talk about more about that in a bit. So, Bramble Elemental is a good card, I think. So it's 5 mana for a 4/4. When an aura becomes attached to it, you make 2 saplings, which is a like perfectly good ability. Bramble Elemental, I think, is a great card. So not much else to say about it. It's a good card, but whether it belongs in this deck really is up for debate. Anyway, so then the actual kind of enchantment matters cards. So 2 Dowsing Shamans. So 5 mana for a 3/4. 2 colors, 1 green tap. Get an enchantment from your graveyard back into your hand. Fine. You got a lot of creatures with auras on them. They'll inevitably die, so you can get the auras back, I guess. Sure. Kind of expensive, I think, but repeatable recursion of your enchantments is okay. 2 Gatherer of Graces, so 2 mana for 1/2, gets +1/+1 for every aura attached to it, and sacrifice an aura to regenerate it. Yeah, it's all right. It's all right, I guess. Yeah, the thing is, you just then feel compelled to put all the auras on this thing. Yeah, and then it's just such a big target then. Yeah, it's fine, I guess. I say leaning into this very weird decision to make the red-green aggro deck all about auras and enchantments. Anyway, so then we have 3 each of Beastmaster's Mage Mark and Fencer's Mage Mark. So I like these Mage Marks. I think they're a fun design. So basically, each one is gives a benefit to all creatures you control that are enchanted. So obviously that includes the creature that has the Mage Mark on it. And the idea is, I guess, you spread other Mage Marks around, and you exponentially grow on these effects. So Beastmaster's Mage Mark is creature you control that are enchanted get +1/+1, and whenever a creature you control that's enchanted becomes blocked, it gets +1/+1 turn for every creature blocking it. And Fencer's Mage Mark, creature you control that are enchanted get +1/+1 at first strike. So, even if you have, I think, like 2 of these down, like you have a Beastmaster's and a Fencer's Mage Mark down, both those creatures getting +2/+2. And first strike, and this, if they get blocked, they get stronger ability. So I do like the Mage Marks. I think they're good cards, but it's just it seems weird to make the red-green deck all about this, And then we have 2 Fists of Ironwood, which is, it's also a pretty good aura, honestly. So 2 mana gives a creature trample, and you make 2 Saprolings when it comes into play. So yeah, again, like perfect good card. Yep. And then the other red deck is Wormweaver Coil. So sort of whopping 6 mana aura, enchant a green creature only. Enchanted creature gets +6/+6. And then you can pay 3 green and sacrifice Wormweaver Coil to put a 6/6 green worm creature token into play. Which is, all these effects are good. Like 6 mana for +6/+6 is obviously pretty good. Sacrificing the coil, like if the creature's going to die or the coil's going to be destroyed to get a big creature token out of it, again, all fine. But yeah, I don't know. It just feels weird. The red green deck is all these auras and enchantments when there's so many. There was such a potential way it could have gone instead. Anyway, and then we have the 1 instant in the deck, a single wild size. I actually quite like wild size. 3 mana to have a creature +2/+2 and trample in turn and draw a card. Would have liked to see more of these, honestly, because a lot of the cards in the deck could benefit from having trample, honestly. And then we have a single Skarg, the Rage Pits. Taps to give you colorless, and on the subject of trample, 1 red, 1 green, tap, a creature gets +1/+1 and gains trample in turn. Would again like to have seen another one of these. Yeah, and also you'll have noticed no copies of the Guildhall, no Gruul Turfs, which is a very weird choice. Anyway, let's talk about what could have been. I'm not going to go through all these in a lot of detail, and I'll cover it in the summary. Right. I don't know why they decided to double down on like this kind of red-green aura theme for the Gruul, because it just feels weird. If you want to do an auras matter deck, I think, I don't know, like either the Orzhov or the Azorius decks would have been better, maybe, or I don't know. Anyway, so what could have been? So a lot of like what I feel are like key Gruul cards have been left out here. I would have preferred this if this had been just more straightforward red-green aggro, honestly. Feral Animist is a card that like it can double its power when you pay, I think, 3. Skarg and Pit Skulk is a bloodthirst creature, and it can't be blocked by creatures with power less than its toughness, so it's like a smaller battering worm. Sulhana Ledgewalker is a hexproof that can only be blocked by creatures with reach or flying, so it's that kind of green parkour ability. Again, would have been good to sneak through and get bloodthirst damage in. Sulhana Starfletcher is just defensive creature with reach and taps for like any color of mana, I think, or you choose a color. So again, would have worked in here, giving you like a ramp option. Gruul Turf, don't know why Gruul Turf wasn't in here. It's just a weird choice not to have it. Farseek is just a land ramp spell. It's the land ramp spell of ramping a block. If you wanted to double down on auras, Galvanic Arc, because this turns on Bloodthirst. Because it comes in, it does 3 damage to anything. and then it also gives the creature first strike, so that would have been okay, I guess, because then you trigger Bloodthirst by getting the damage in. I don't know. Rain of Embers also triggers Bloodthirst and gets rid of small creatures. There's 1 damage to like everything. Yeah. Predatory Focus at the end there gives all your creatures super trample, so they deal damage as if they weren't blocked. Yeah. And then potential rares instead of the Wormweaver Coil, I think. Gruul Warplow gives all your creatures trample. Again, a lot of creatures in the deck would benefit from that. And it can turn into a 4/4 artifact creature until end of turn by paying as well, which is, gives you another creature. And Rumbling Slum, this could have been good as well. 4 mana for a big 5/5, does 1 damage to every player, again triggers Bloodthirst. So, in summary, I am really confused why they chose to kind of like make the auras a theme, but also then not go too heavy on it. Like if you're going to do it, like do it properly, have a lot more kind of creature auras, because there's 9, which is not that many really when you've got a deck of sort of all these other creatures. The thing is, it feels very torn between the Bloodthirst creatures, which admittedly are not great, and like this, then the aura theme. Again, it's like it runs in this theme of a lot of these theme decks which I look at and I'm kind of underwhelmed by, where it's trying to do 2 things at once and it doesn't feel like it's doing either of them particularly well. So yeah, I would have preferred if this just been kind of a bit more straightforward, red-green aggro, just play big creatures, concentrate on hitting Bloodthirst, and yeah, just kind of winning through combat that way rather than doing the auras. But that's my thoughts after seeing the deck on paper. What were your thoughts? Did you own this deck and did you play it? Did you make any changes? Did you go focus more on the auras, or did you take out the auras? Please stick a comment below. I'd really like to know your thoughts and opinions on this deck. But I'll be back next time to look at the last deck from Guildpact. But until then, thank you for watching, listening, and have a good day.